Behind the perfect image of 1950s America, a quieter reality was hidden. While the country celebrated perfect suburbs and patriotic pride, many gay men and women lived in fear, left them no choice but to hide their identity to stay safe. They faced humiliation, punishment, and the threat of losing everything. Yet, in the middle of this danger, a spark of courage grew. Small groups met in secret rooms, whispering hope into a world that refused to see them. Their bravery formed the homophile movement, a quiet, determined force that challenged injustice and led the first flame of the modern fight of gay rights. The homophile movement and Stonewall were a crucial turning point, showing how foundational work and explosive defiance transform LGBTQ plus activism. Today, I will be going to begin by first explaining what the term homophile means and why early activists chose it. Then I will walk through the organizations that shaped the movement, the strategies they used, the shift toward liberation activism, the impact of Stonewall, and finally, the movement's lasting legacy in modern LGBTQ plus activism. Now that we know our path, let's start with the basics. To start, the term homophile meaning same love was coined in the 1930s. It was chosen over the term homosexual because the term was already associated with criminalization, pathology, and stigma. According to Waldo E. Martin Jr., a professor of American history and citizenship at the University of California, and Patricia Sullivan, a professor of history at the University of South Carolina, in their 2000 overview of the gay liberation movement published in the Civil Rights in the United States, explains that this era marked the first time in American history that gay and lesbian people organized collectively to demand equality. Knowing what homophile means helps us understand why early activists chose it. Now that we know what the word means, we can take a look at the people who first turned this idea into a real movement. In the early 1950s, the homophile organizations began forming in U.S. cities. The most notable were the Mattachine Society and the Daughters of Elias. The Mattachine Society was the first group in the country to openly defend the rights of homosexual people and to argue that they were a minority facing discrimination. Because the Mattachine Society was largely represented gay men, two lesbian activists, Phyllis Lyon and Del Martin, stepped forward and founded the Daughters of Elias in 1955, provided lesbians with a safe community. Both groups operated quietly and relied on newsletters like Mattachine Review and The Ladder to keep people connected, especially those people in living isolation. According to Corey Eusting, a researcher at the University of Texas, in his 2025 online lecture, The Homophile Movement, Assimilation Before Liberation, explained that this publication facilitated the development of a national network and supplied practical resources, including guides such as If You Were Arrested, The Pocket Lawyer, a guide navigating to police questioning at the time when homosexuality was criminalized. But staying connected was not enough. As dangers grew, activists had to find new ways to protect themselves and fight for their rights. As a result of this pressure, they were forced to innovate, pushing for their rights through strategies that were cautious but still effective. As noted by Brenda Marstone, a curator of Cornell University's Human Sexuality Collection, in her 2023 digital exhibition, 1950 to 1960s Homophile Movement, published in Cornell University Library, explained early groups developed new approaches, such as acting respectable, reaching out to professionals, and building safe spaces where queer people could finally be themselves. But their most defiant action was stepping into public view. At events like annual reminders, where queer people stood outside on the streets with signs saying one thing: we are humans and we deserve to be seen. This moment shook the public and helped spark the LGBTQ plus activism that followed. However, as the movement became more noticeable, Disagreements emerge over how quickly and how boldly activists should push for change. While the homophile groups tried to survive believing blending in was the only safe option, younger activists rejected that caution, seeing silence as surrender. As highlighted by Benson and her co-authors, all experienced reference writers in their 2009 overview of the gay liberation movement published in UXL Encyclopedia of U.S. History, explain groups like Gay Liberation Front and Gay Activist Alliance rejected quiet assimilation entirely. They demanded confrontation, visibility, and their frustration led to a bold question. Why hide when the world refuses to see you? Year after year, that bold defiance built an unbearable pressure. Then, on one momentous night, the tension finally snapped, and that breaking point was Stonewall. In her 2014 article, The Stonewall Riots, June 28, 1969, published in Global Events, Mulsa Events Throughout History, Jennifer Stock, an educational reference writer, describes Stonewall as the birth of bold queer defiance. She further notes that Stonewall was not a polite request. It was a riot. When the police raided Stonewall Inn expecting fear, queer people stood together, refused to back down, and declared, "You can bruise our bodies, but you will never shame us." That night transformed years of resilience into open resistance. Yet, Stonewall was not the beginning. It was the turning point that shaped by years of collective effort. Long before uprising, the homophile organizations built the foundation that made Stonewall possible. Their legacy allows people today to organize, speak out, and imagine a future where everyone belongs. First, it laid the foundation for the Queer National Network. Second, it challenged laws and medical labels that cast gay people as criminal or mentally ill. And lastly, it reframed coming out as a power political act. Taken together, this step shows how every step, whether quiet or explosive, helped build the LGBTQ plus activism we know today. Therefore, the homophile movement shows how quiet courage can reshape the nation. By defining the term, looking early groups like Mattachine Society and the Daughters of Bilitis, and explaining their careful strategies, we see activists protecting, challenging discrimination while protecting one another. Their groundwork enabled later liberation movement and continues to shape modern LGBTQ plus activism. From quiet whispers to a roar, those early movements built legacy proven every step. Every choice to speak out shaped their own fight for equality. Their story reminds us that change does not always begin with a roar. Sometimes it starts as a whisper that grows stronger each time another person dares to speak.